Gareth pulled up a ship diagram on his console.
This shows a main corridor that leads right down the middle of the ship, connecting the cargo bay and the bridge in a straight line. We came in the airlock here and followed another corridor that intersects the main one here at the bridge and loops around and meets it again down by the cargo bay.
Looks like there are rooms off the hallways here, and this room has got doors on both sides.
Penelope motioned to the map.
You can go right out of here and Ton and I can go straight. We'll open the doors on this side and keep visible contact with you.
I don't like the idea of being far from you guys, but fine. We'll meet where the corridors converge and then see what's in the cargo bay. Don't touch those cargo bay door controls till we're together.
Yes, Mom.
He responded with a mocking Terran salute.
You know, I always said if I joined the military, I'd get kicked right back out because I'd tell an officer to go fuck themselves.
Lay said as she plopped down on the cot.
But
Pen waited for her to continue.
nothing. That's it. Oh, well, I did just pass the engineer's qualifier and the instructor was an ass, but I managed to contain my sarcasm.
How was it? I'm taking it soon too, and I feel like my head's going to explode.
Mac asked.
It's honestly not bad. They just like to scare you. Had to deactivate a faulty auto turret, or it might just turn me to Swiss cheese like yay right. They wouldn't actually let something hurt you.
Penelope's mind wandered again as she made her way back into the hall. They were good memories, though. There was a desire to sit in them for a time, but she knew she couldn't. Pulling herself from her reverie, she made eye contact with Tonette and Gareth and moved around the corner. As the map had shown, there was a single door on her right halfway down the hall and 2 doors on her left. Moving slowly, she made it to the first door on the left and tapped open on the panel. The whoosh of the door cut the eerie silence of the ship, and a second later, a second whooshing came from the door across the room. Tonette made eye contact and waved a tentacle. The room was dark, save the few emergency lights slowly pulsing. There were resting pods and crew spaces in the room, but nothing stirred. The echoing sound of the door faded back to silence. Penelope motioned to Tonette to move to the next door and open it. Still, nothing stirred as all the doors to the room were opened. Now closer to the 4 resting pods, both Penelope and Tonette could see they were empty. That said, there were signs of habitation. Desks had paraphernalia on them, and there was an eating area that had clearly been used. I'll check the other room and meet up with you guys. Wait for me before you do anything, Penelope said, eyeing Tonette to stress her point.
Of course, Miss Penelope.
They mimicked a human nod emphatically. With no neck, it looked more like a shaking of their upper torso, but the gesture was understood. Penelope quickly checked the other room and found more silence and stillness. It was a maintenance room of some kind. Access to main engine systems and other critical systems all hummed quietly. Again, though, there were signs of use but no life forms present. With nothing but the cargo bay to check, Penelope followed the corridor around to her allies.
Nothing. An engine room, but no one there,
she said.
Well then, let's finally see what this signal is,
Gareth said as his hand moved to the door's control panel.
Those turrets are no joke though, Mac. Hell of a piece of engineering.
Tonette had moved over behind Penelope.
Gareth, wait.
She suddenly realized why these memories were coming back to her. It was too late, though. The first thing to be noticed when the cargo bay doors slid open was the smell, a nauseating stench of death and decay. The next thing to be noticed was a whirring noise coming from the center of the large room, a whirring that terrified the only one who knew what it was the prelude to.
Enemy lifeform detected.
Penelope's arm shot forward, grasped Gareth's top right arm and ripped him back out of view of the doors. She felt his shell crack under her grip, but it was better than the alternative because just as he left the space, it was filled with lead. Round after round collided with the far wall, leaving a trail of punctures about the height of the Blue Nebula's first officer. The turret ceased firing after the first burst, but the rotating barrel kept spinning. waiting. Its whirring sounded a telltale sign that it was still trained on the precise position Gareth had occupied. Gareth could almost ignore the pain in his arm as shock took him. Penelope still gripped him, almost not daring to breathe.
Are you okay?
Yes.
He stammered as she picked him up and set him down well behind her and motioned for Tonnet to back up.
I believe I know what happened to the crew of the ship, Miss Penelope.
They said as they helped Gareth move away.
Yeah. What do we do with this?
Gareth asked, nursing his cracked arm plate.
We hope that this works.
Penelope responded as she moved back towards the door and holstered her sidearm. She didn't move into the doorway, instead leaning up against the wall just to its side.
Recognize human voice pattern.
The whirring didn't cease.
Human voice pattern recognized. Anti-theft protocol engaged. All non-authorized military personnel will be fired upon. You have been warned.
Let's hope it's been a short while since its databanks were updated. Recognize military personnel. Aster Penelope, Captain.
Military personnel recognized. Captain Penelope Aster, Special Operations Designation Sila, active service. Emergency identification code requested.
Penelope glanced back at her companions.
Shit, this might just work. Emergency identification code Alpha 8, Europa, Epsilon, Crimson, Amber.
Emergency identification code accepted. Visual identity. Confirmation requested.
Penelope collected herself for a moment before standing tall and stepping out into the doorway. Both Gareth and Tonnet winced, waiting for that terrifying sound. And yet, it didn't come.
Face obscured. Breathing device detected. Local oxygen levels not acceptable for human life. Retinal scan engaged. Identity confirmed. It is an honor, Captain Sila, requesting the return of this APDET unit to UEMC custody or the facilitation of this unit's destruction, recommending elimination of 2 enemy lifeforms detected within scanner range.
Its barrel stopped spinning but turned back to the door where Gareth had been. Penelope moved forward slowly.
Unit, recognize command. Shut down.
Unit, unable to comply with command. Enemy lifeforms detected within scan range.
Shit, don't come in yet.
She yelled back out the door.
Unit, recognize command. All life forms within scan range are designated friendly.
Command recognized. Authority level accepted. 2. Lifeforms designated friendly. 0. Enemies detected within scan range. Command recognized. Beginning shutdown sequence.
Penelope breathed a sigh of relief.
Thank f***.
Sequence complete. Requesting return of this unit to UEMC custody or facilitation of this unit's destruction.
With that, the turret's barrel lowered, and it entered a dormant state. Immediately, Penelope moved past the corpses and to the power supply conduit, removing the power cable.
Okay,
She sighed.
you guys should be good to come in.
Tonnet's face briefly peeked around the doorframe before immediately withdrawing. Again, they peeked, this time lingering for a short time longer before withdrawing. Finally, accepting that it may be safe to enter, they moved into the doorway. Gareth moved in tentatively after them. With the crisis over, they could all look on the carnage surrounding the now deactivated turret. 7 corpses lay strewn about the cargo bay. 3 were in habsuites, while 4 were regularly clothed. All of them, though, were absolutely riddled with holes. The walls behind all of them were similarly scored with turret fire. The decay had seemingly progressed far enough that their stench even made its way through the trio's breathers. In addition to the turret and the corpses were 3 heavy metal chests with signage that designated them as UEMC weapons and ammunition crates. Penelope spoke up first.
Black market dealers somehow find themselves in possession of Terran military equipment. Ignorant of automated defense protocols, they hook up power to the anti-personnel defense turret, and it immediately eliminates all of them. This leaves them adrift where they'd stopped with no one left to raise an alarm. With power and all hostiles neutralized, the turret sits here doing nothing but constantly transmitting its anti-theft warning because it can't recognize that it's just drifting in space and not hooked up to a defense grid.
I wouldn't expect anything less from your kind.
Gareth spoke as he looked around at the dead bodies.
The defense platform's first act in an unknown situation is to slaughter everything around it. Smart.
She did save your life, sir.
And it was our people's infernal machinery that put it in danger to begin with.
He winced in pain as his arm moved too quickly.
While not wrong, I did tell you to wait for me.
Penelope retorted.
But sorry about the arm.
Gareth's frills shuddered in frustration.
Whatever. Well, with the mystery of the human killing machine solved, I'll report back to the captain. Tonnet see about these poor people's bodies and then report back as well.
With a huff, he spun around and marched off down the main hall and turned right towards the airlock.
He doesn't mean much by it, Miss Penelope, I'm sure.
They trailed off, not knowing exactly what to say.
There's no need, Tonnet. He's entitled to his opinions. My people's inclination for violence is as much a topic of debate amongst ourselves as it is the galactic community. He's not exactly wrong,
she said, as she looked over the weapons crates. They were fully stocked with Terran weapons and ammunition, as the signage indicated. Tonnet inspected the bodies of the 7 dead. A curious look came over them.
Interesting.
What is it?
Penelope asked, as she closed the first crate and moved over to her companion.
Well, it would seem that these 3...
She motioned to the 3 aliens in HAB suits.
And these 4.
She motioned to the Tinsne in normal clothing.
May be separate groups. In addition to the HAB suits, these 3 are not Tinsne and seem to have died much later than the other 4.
But that doesn't make sense. Where'd they come from?
Indeed. And remember, the artificial gravity on the ship has been increased beyond Tinsne norm. Perhaps these 3 did it. It would seem this mystery is not quite solved after...
Both suddenly had to steady themselves as the ship shook and then settled once more. They looked at each other with concern.
What was that?
Penelope asked.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. And if you're feeling generous, check out our Ko-Fi page to support the channel. Every bit helps us bring you more stories from the stars. Thanks a bunch.